You're listening to the Renzo Republic.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the one and only Renzo Republic podcast, Season 3, folks. Want to give a shout out to Auto Radio Player FM and LRN.FM. And before I forget, the awesome Self-Defense Radio Network. Love y'all. Still not bitter about the Blaze. It's okay. You know, it's been almost like 6 months now, and like people are still, reaching out to me about that. And, even though my voice is a little hoarse, I promise you I'm not upset about that. Everything is going great. Season 3 is off to a great start. And as always, here we're trying to make freedom fun again, confront the culture, and have a good time in the process. Now, like I said, my voice is a little bit out there today. I've got a cold, but, when you're doing this full time, you can't really reschedule things last minute. You can't really not do things. So I'm going to try my best not to cough, wheeze, blow my nose on the mic and all that jazz. I'm going to go ahead and let our guests talk. And before I introduce them, I kind of want to go into what we're talking about a little bit, because I'm recording this a few days after the whole Stephen Colbert shit show where he's basically like calling out Trump and everything else. By the time you're hearing this is July. And I'm doing this now because I'm taking the strong bet that progressives and leftists and snowflakes and the whole ragamuffin crew is still trying to pull out Trump jokes. And don't get me wrong, I love a good Trump meme. I'm not saying that I'm sensitive to it, but there's a point for everything when like things just aren't funny. Like, and I'm gonna sound like a jerk, but I mean it's like pulling out an AIDS joke. It's just not funny. I'm not saying that Trump is the equivalent to AIDS, because he's not, but, there's just some things that you just don't joke about. You're not going to make a 9/11 joke because people are going to hate you. You make a Trump joke and the audience is just flat, regardless as to whether or not they're on the left or on the right. $10 says that if someone on the left laughs at a Trump joke right now, they're doing it just because they need to make it appear funny. And I try and do that here and there, but, the reason why I do the show pre-recorded, not live, is because I know people wouldn't laugh at me. With that said, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest. He's calling in from New York tonight. Joey D, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, how are you?
I'm a little bit under the weather, but glad we were able to get this going. So, sir, just got to ask up front. As a professional comedian, are Trump jokes just not funny anymore, or is it just something I'm not getting? Because it seems that people are throwing them out left and right and 20 million times, and they're recycling the same things, and it's just you can't make fun of him. You can't do it anymore. I mean, it's dead. Even the creators of South Park gave up on it. So, in your honest opinion, dead, or can we keep going with it?
I think we can keep going with it because there's different takes, and each comedian provides a different point of view. So the late night hosts each have their own kind of point of view, and that point of view translates into their jokes. Now, that's a boring answer, but I think that this guy is, listen, my Twitter feed, a lot of it, like today, I think out of 10 jokes, I do about 10 jokes a day. My Twitter feed, if I could do a shameless plug, is Joey D New York. I do a fair amount of them. And it's ironic is that I don't do any of those on stage. So none of that's in my act. I just do current events on my Twitter feed. And as long as he keeps giving us explosive headlines and explosive, outlandish behavior, it's a gold mine. There's no such thing as that's not funny anymore. I mean, it's our job to find the funny. So if you're talking about 10 jokes from a mundane comedian that have been told 20 different ways, yeah, I could see how you would think it's boring, but you're looking for that one or two that are just, present a striking different point of view, point out a fact that everybody overlooked, and that's your goal. So, yeah, you might have 9 horrible Trump jokes, but that one is good. And that one addressed something that was so outlandish that we have to talk about it. I mean, everything that's going on right now with with the whole Russia thing. I mean, blatantly, meeting with, now whether or not he did anything bad remains to be seen. We're going to see whether or not that plays out. But just the audacity of it, like, I love it because he's brazen. But there's definitely, it's our job to point out the inconsistencies, and it's our job to point out the irony. It's our job to point out things that people miss. That's what comedians are. We're the new prophets, and we're the ones that are there to take we take out the time to nitpick all of this shit when everybody else is living what I assume to be regular, good, normal, wholesome lives. So, sorry to plug me and sorry to plug the whole profession, but I feel very strongly about this stuff.
Don't you feel that in terms of just comedy, and I'm talking like the mainstream entertainment industry, like celebrities have often kind of overstepped the boundaries when they're just trying to preach? Because honestly, some of my favorite comedians are like, Gabriel Iglesias and, Bill Engvall and some of those guys. And they'll touch on current events and politics every once in a while. But, I mean, they focus strictly on their content. They focus strictly on entertaining people, because it's gotten to the point where, not just me, I know plenty of people that have started tuning out of, Colbert and The Daily Show and everything else in terms of just, TV audiences, because they're tired of being lectured to. They're tired about hearing it. So do you really think it's about, nitpicking and calling out those certain things? Or is it about entertainment? Because it's at the point where I just want to be mindlessly entertained.
Yeah, well, I mean, you and me both. So I'm sitting on the same side as you. I love to be entertained, but you got to understand some of the things that you have talked about. So there's a difference between being entertained, and then there's a difference between something that drives a narrative. So now what The Daily Show did a long time ago was it took, instead of just entertaining people, because that's what a lot of the late night talk shows do, they just entertain. Okay, hey, what's crazy about this and that and the other thing? Hey, that's crazy, funny joke, it's harmless, it doesn't really have a point of view. What The Daily Show did was it drives a narrative, and it takes a stance, and it proves something, and the jokes are almost secondary, and the jokes almost write themselves. Now, I haven't been watching The Daily Show lately for that exact reason, and I'm kind of an anti-Trump guy. I kind of was great, I was raised in a very, Democrat-driven inner city household, so wherever like the blacks, the gays, and the Jews were, that's where I was, and that's kind of what I represent. But I could see how being a smart, liberal-minded person, and I could see how, I'm sick of being lectured to. So now what you're, to kind of connect it back to the Stephen Colbert instance, what he did was, he was really shying away from the Trump stuff. Well, now he took a stance. He took a stance based on where he thinks this is going. So whether or not he thinks Trump is going to go down, whether or not he thinks Trump, he feels the tide turning, and now he is taking a stance. So now what we're talking about, two different things. If you come down to New York City and you go to the Comedy Cellar, you go to Gotham, you will be entertained. Will there be some current events, political stuff in there? Chances are there will. Will it overtake the entire set of you being entertained? Probably not. But when you're talking about these platforms, because Daily Show's a platform, so you're talking about we're talking about two different things: being entertained through comedians, and then being entertained with comedy through a platform is two totally different things. And once you have that platform, and once you have those users, and once you have those people and impressions watching you, the tendency is to drive toward a narrative, because now you have a soapbox. And when you're on a soapbox, do you want to make dick jokes, or do you want to take it a step further and teach people with humor? So Again, not saying whether it's right or wrong. I have no control. I don't want people to think the way I do, but it's take it or leave it. You don't watch The Daily Show because The Daily Show has a narrative. And if you don't agree with that narrative, you just don't watch it. It's real simple. You don't get penalized. You don't get hit with a fucking bamboo stick, because you didn't watch it. But the ability for us to recognize the difference between sheer comedy and entertainment with a narrative, I think that's where the dichotomy is. And whether or not you embark on that journey of watching or showing your support for such platforms is entirely up to you.
That makes a lot of sense. And we're going to continue this conversation in a moment. But first, we're going to go ahead and take our first commercial break. Folks, you're listening to the Remso Republic. Hang on tight, and we'll be back in a moment.
Let's make freedom fun again. Take the show on the go by subscribing to the Remso Republic on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, and YouTube. Don't be left out.
Hey everyone, the Johnny Rocket Launchpad is Liberty. Each week we strive to bring you the best guests in talk radio. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad delivers weekly interviews of noteworthy politicians, experts, and activists. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is bringing the party to the Libertarian Party and launching ideas in your direction. Check us out at JohnnyRocketLaunchpad.com. You can hear me, Kurt Nelson, and the beautiful Heather Nixon talk about the ideas of liberty, rock and roll.
Hey guys, Tim Preuss here, and I wanted to take a minute and invite you to stop over to PreussPodcast.com and give our show a listen. We've got in-depth commentary on the issues that matter to you.
These hookers, fucking whores, are out there.
These hookers, man, I tell you.
Yeah, that's like the most contact I've had with the hooker. Is
them yelling at you.
Yelling at me on Twitter.
We break down the most pressing issues of our time.
This large lady with like tight clothing on. Not appropriately linked tight clothing either.
And we get the most intelligent analysis from friends of ours like Jeffrey Tucker.
We pulled over engine trouble, and what happened? What happened? I don't know. Oh God!
Seriously though, we love putting on a show that both entertains and educates. We're growing, and we'd be thrilled if you joined us. Check out PreussPodcast.com for more. That's PREUSS podcast.com.
Make sure to visit libertarianwingmedia.com, where you can find articles written by libertarians all over the world on all of today's issues. Check out our podcast network with monthly and weekly podcasts. Check out our libertarian t-shirt store with t-shirts like Make Markets Free Again and Make Markets Not War. And you too can become an author at Libertarian Wing Media and write what you want when you want. Just email alexmerced@alexmerced.com. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. We've got Joey DiPiazza from Brooklyn calling in. We're going to keep our conversation going, but I kind of want to switch things a little bit because I don't want to come across as like a comedy purist in any way, shape, or form because I'll admit I'm not a giant Amy Schumer fan, but I think her show Inside Amy Schumer was funny. That and I tuned into the Dave Chappelle special on Netflix, the two specials he did, and I like to laugh, and even if it's a little self-deprecating, even when people like me are the target, I like to laugh. I'm not really sensitive about that type of stuff. But it seems that, when I go on SNL, I get when you're going after somebody because it could be funny sometimes and it could push the envelope, and I'm perfectly okay with that. But, when I tune into SNL and when I check Twitter and I see what Aziz Ansari and a bunch of those other guys are doing, it's just a lot of their comments are just turning outright hateful because about a week after the inauguration, SNL did a skit where they basically killed off Kellyanne Conway. And regardless of your opinion of Kellyanne Conway, and this is just my opinion, if she were a liberal and they killed her on the show, you'd have a lot of left-wing progressives on college campuses calling for SNL to get canceled. And then when you look at, what was going on with Last Man Standing and Tim Allen, I don't know the details about that because not much is coming out, but the common consensus is it was a hit job. They got rid of the show because it showed a conservative Christian family. So where's the line drawing? Because it's getting to the point where things are either just a little bit, pushing the envelope, or it's just turning outright hateful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a great question. And I mean, is there a line to be drawn? Because when you draw a line, you're essentially drawing the line up the middle and you're saying this is not allowed or this is not good. And then now we live in a totalitarian state where it's so again, it's all relative and it's essentially divided. So you have something that's divided up the middle. On this half, you got conservative Trump supporters, and on the other half, you got, I think you referred to them as those types and those people, which I think is hilarious. You got the liberal, mentality, and I certainly, like I said, for all intents and purposes, I fall into that. Now, I'm not going to go and protest and put a pussy hat on my fucking head in Times Square because for women's rights and march against Trump. I'm not one of those. I don't even understand how those people do what they do. I'm not going to march. I'm not going to shit on things. I'm just going to go ahead and hone my fucking craft. And, part of my craft, like I said, I do a lot of self-deprecating, character-driven stand-up. But then on my Twitter, I do a lot of current events and I do get into the politics a little bit, and I'm not shy about showing my opinion on Twitter. So, I understand your point, but the creative art, show business types tend to fall into the liberal category. So what do you see on SNL? Now, I'm going to take a personal stance that I think SNL's beaten that a little bit too hard. It's almost turning me off, and I'm kind of an anti-Trump guy. But I think they're going a little bit much. But who am I to tell Lauren? I'm not going to tweet to Lauren Michaels and tell him that he's wrong or anything like that. I mean, I think it's a time where we could sit back and marvel at it. It's free speech in action. So, there's a conservative podcast I'm on all the time here in New York City. It's one of the most popular ones here. It's called the NYC Crime Report with Pat Dixon. Now, Pat Dixon is very much on your side of being a very, very, very conservative man. He's one of the most brilliant stand-up comedians here in New York City. Like I call, I'm pro stand-up comedian, but Pat got more pro stand-up comedian in his pinky fingernail than I have in my whole body. And he's smart, he's great, he's hilarious, and he's to the point. Now, when he invites me on his show, he often invites me on his show he takes shots at me, and I know I'm going to get it at some point, but it's done so well with such great comedy writing and such great wit that I appreciate it as an artist. So at the end of the day, we're artists. So there's really nothing that I'm going to say like, oh, that shouldn't be there, or someone shouldn't say that, or you shouldn't. I'm going to say whatever the fuck you want. And at the end of the day, I almost love the shock value of anything. It could be coming from the left or it could be coming from the right. Anything that causes people to go, what the fuck? I'm a huge fan of. But to be honest, this is going to probably strike you insane, is that I'm a huge fan of Donald Trump. I'm a huge fan. When Barack Obama got elected president, I said something that it needs to hold true for Trump as well. I said, I enjoy anybody that shocks the system, that shakes up the system, that because I'm a rebel. And Donald Trump very much, exemplifies that. in his own way. Of course, that's very different than Barack Obama. But he is fucking doing things his way. He doesn't give a fuck what anybody thinks. And he's doing things in such a unconservative fashion. How can I not love that? I love it. I hope he goes far. I hope he's the best president that we ever have had, so that all of us that are against him could eat fucking crow. And I mean, we're living, this is history being made right now. So instead of me going back and sitting there going, oh, fuck Trump or fuck this or fuck that. Yeah, I'll make Trump jokes. But you know what? I'm kind of relishing this point in time because I've been around long enough to know when history is being made. And this is insane shit. And every day that goes on, it's getting more and more insane. I always said that the world would be better if it was run by fucking crazy people. It looks like I'm starting to get my dream come true here. So I don't want this guy to go away anytime soon. What the fuck am I going to write about on Twitter? You know? I want this guy to just keep going fucking crazy and telling people to go fuck themselves. I love people that tell other people to go fuck themselves. So anything that breaks tradition or bucks the system. So when I see my liberal friends crying and in the streets and with signs, I'm like, fuck them. You know, so where do I stand? Like I said, I'm not a diehard, bleeding heart, tree-hugging fucking liberal, but what I am is I'm almost like I'm leaning towards, in my older years, I'm leaning towards being a libertarian, because I realize that it's not my job to tell people what to like and what not to like, but I am going to poke fun at shit. Whether you like what I say or whether you're not, it's totally up to you. I have no control over that. I'm an AA. I'm an alcoholic. One of the foundations of our philosophy is acceptance. We have no control over three things: people, places, and things. So it's not my job to tell you what to like and what not to like. It's my job to point out the inconsistencies and the bullshit. And if I was in charge of the Daily Show, I'd probably be doing the same thing. So you know, you got to understand where they're coming from before you say something is totally fucking shit. The liberals got control of the media. They got control of the platforms. So of course it's going to be one-sided. But you guys got the voice, and you have your own network. It's Fox News and all that other stuff. And you know, so it's not like nobody's listening to you. You put your guy in office. So I mean, so he is the president. You know, is it just so happens that 80% of the shit out there is against him? Yeah, but that's where those people stand, and that's where those, you know, that's what they represent. So they're formulating a point of view. So I like different points of view, and I appreciate them. So, you know, I'm kind of hands-offy liberal, if you will. But enough about me. What do you think?
I completely agree with you. And we're going to go ahead and keep this conversation going. But folks, we're going to take our final commercial break and wrap things up. You're listening to the Remso Republic with special guest Joey DiPiazza from New York. Hang on tight. We'll be back in a moment.
We'll be back shortly. Stay up to date with the latest news and updates by visiting RemsoRepublic.com.
Make sure to subscribe to all the podcasts on the Libertarian Wing Media Podcast Network on Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher, such as the Alex Merced Cast, with interesting interviews with interesting people every week. Breaking Progressives, spending time every week breaking down left-wing narratives and showing what's real and what's fake. Economics Why Not, a weekly look at economics and applying economic principles to daily life. Better Today, a weekly podcast where we take a look on ways to improve your life and be better today. Libertarian Comments is a podcast where we play audio from the video archives of Alex Merced from his videos dating back to 2008. Liberty Public Access, a podcast where anyone can submit an episode. Submit your episodes to Alex Merced at alexmerced.com. Have you been wanting to start your own podcast? Then subscribe to Podcast and Blogging Tips and Tricks, a weekly podcast about how to host your podcast, how to produce your podcast, and how to market your podcast. We'll be adding some monthly podcasts to the lineup soon, including Make Markets Free Again, a monthly look at what's going on in markets and regulation all over the world, and the Free VST podcast, looking at free VST instruments for electronic music producers. Listen to these podcasts by going to libertarianwingmedia.com or subscribing on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. And if you enjoy the podcast, tell your friends and leave a positive review on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play.
Are you looking for a podcast that represents life, liberty, and free movement of ideas? Well, look no further. The Classical Liberal Podcast is here for free speech and the latest in American politics. Come tune in for liberty with Alex Shaw at theclassicalliberal.weebly.com. That's classicalliberal.weebly.com. Folks, welcome back. We're going to wrap things up. I kind of want to finish the show on kind of a lighter note. Joey, I have a friend from, I've got a friend from New York, and he works in Manhattan right now. We were just talking, and, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm stereotyping New Yorkers, but there's a certain, like, you know, you can tell when someone's from New York, just like you can tell when someone's from Boston. They've got a certain, I'm not going to say an accent, but they've got a certain voice to it. And we were talking about politics because we don't have lives, but I brought up the fact that, you know, it's like, I don't think anyone else sounds like Donald Trump. People say that he talks and his mannerisms are like a New Yorker, but I've never met anyone that kind of matches that stereotype. So when I say that there's a New York accent, am I just stereotyping, or is there one that actually exists?
No, there's one that exists. Just don't say you're ours. That's all.
What?
He don't say you're ours. You're ours. You're ours. The letter R. So don't say you're ours. You got to be rude and interrupt, and that's what he does. He doesn't have time for shit. He doesn't have time for shit. So he'll listen for 30 seconds and then just be like, all right. That's a New York thing. Like one time, kid pull over in a car and he's like, he's like, wait, where's the Guggenheim Museum? I says, where you from? He said, Toronto. I said, go back. So, that's, I don't know where the fucking Guggenheim Museum is, like I go there all the time, but or you'll get where's the Guggenheim? You'll be like, okay, you see that? You're going to walk across the street and the guy will be like, yeah, you see that guy over there? You're going to ask him because I don't know where the fuck it's at. So that's New York. New York, we just don't have fucking time. So it's more like an attitude. Like and everything you heard me say was a lot like that. It's just like I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. I don't give a fuck if your head's on fire. Don't make a difference to me. Nobody gives a fuck. You can think whatever you want, but over here we got to figure out a way to get along. Otherwise we're gonna die. So. That's just it. The New York attitude is I don't have fucking time for your bullshit. Don't sit there and try and talk my ear off about politics. I'm gonna tell you to go fuck yourself. Just get out of here. So yeah, we're involved, but so it's more of an attitude than an accent. And the accents get deeper. So deeper you get in Brooklyn, it'd be like like you don't really say the letter R. And then the Staten Island accent's a little bit thicker and a little bit deeper. He was raised in a nice part of Queens. That gets a little bit deeper and thicker. Everybody that lives in Manhattan's a fucking transplant from, fucking Mississippi and New Mexico and all that other shit. So Manhattan's sterilized, cosmopolitan. It's very neutral when it comes to that stuff. But like I live in Brooklyn, but I don't really do comedy in Brooklyn because comedy in Brooklyn's a little alternative comedy because all the fucking hipsters and the millennials and all that shit. I'm a club comic, so I do all of my work in Manhattan. And
I'm just curious. I don't want to interrupt you, but do you think that millennials are funny? Because I hear a lot of people say that our sense of humor is shit, our fashion is shit. There's nothing good about us. Are millennials funny?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're generalizing, and
Yeah.
it's tough to generalize. I try and see. I'm a good sport. Like, I'll laugh at anything. So millennials are good at, like when I told you earlier about pointing out the inconsistencies of things. They're hyper analytical. And they're arrogant and smart ass and smuggish about certain things, but that's comedy. So I've been taught a lot by my younger counterparts. One of my, Brett Raybould, who's a young comedian and very much a millennial, but I don't know if you've ever seen the commercial with Celino and Barnes, the law commercial.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, he goes. I think his joke was like, "What if you called up one day in the law firm and the law guy, one of them answers the phone. He's like, 'Hey, this is Celino,' and you're like, 'Yeah, I don't want to talk. Is it okay if I talk to Barnes? You know, I don't. I want a lawyer that sounds a little bit more Jewy.'"
Oh
and
my
yeah. So the Brett brought that up, and I thought that was like, I could have never come up with that. I mean, it was just fucking genius. And here's going back to my original point: millennials provide a point of view, and the point of view of their world is very different than my point of view. You see, I'm 40, so I have one foot in the young bucket, but I have also one foot in the old bucket. So I'm not an old comedian, but I'm definitely not a young comedian. So I enjoy them. They don't rattle off jokes and write stuff as quick as I do. But I like them because they take chances and they have a point of view. If you have a point of view and you're taking chances, it's comedy to me. So a lot of my counterparts hate them. I appreciate them because without them, it would just be a bunch of guys like me up there rattling off one-liners. They can't do what I do, but I can't really do what they do either. So it's part of the comedy body, if you will. They're definitely a major part of what we do here. And yeah, the nerds have taken over comedy. So God bless. Hannibal Buress is one of them. That's alt comedy. That's like, it's different. I can't say anything bad about him because I know him, and he's reaping an immense amount of success by doing the Brooklyn alt scene, alternative scene here. And the alt scene has generated a lot of great comics like Patton Oswalt, like Maria Bamford, and that's great. But I'm definitely partial to the old guard. The Bill Hicks of the world. Louis doing great. Bill Burr is the comedian's comedian. So if you want to know who we like, our god is Bill Burr.
No, I definitely understand what you're saying. And Bill Hicks is one of my favorite guys. His whole "it's just a ride" shtick, I love that. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, and that's a guy with a point of view. And that's a guy. Him and Carlin were questioning society. They had conspiracy theory type stuff. And that stuff I heavily believe in, but I don't really talk about it because I neither have the following nor the platform yet. But, that's some super duper duper deep stuff. But if you look at the early tapes of Hicks and Carlin, they're doing fucking dick jokes, when they're 10 years in. So comedy, you evolve, your style evolves, your point of view evolves, and your your act evolves as time goes on. Right now, I told everybody that I was quitting comedy today, just to give you an idea of what I go through. And now I totally forgot I had this fucking interview, and I was like, oh God, I fucking gotta stop. And because I'm starting to get all kinds of blowback from all of my comedy counterparts because I'm not happy with my act at this point, and I need to step it up, and it's not happening as quick as I'd like. So it's definitely an organic thing, just like your podcast. I'm sure if I listen to the first episode.
Oh, don't listen to that. Do not listen to the first episode.
Things evolve. This is an art, man. It's an expressive art, whether you're doing it on the radio, whether you're doing it on stage, whether you're doing it on a canvas. All of this stuff is a beautiful part of being human. And I like to turn on the TV and watch Stephen lampoon Donald Trump. But at the same time, I like to watch Donald Trump call bullshit on all of that other stuff. It's almost like watching a good boxing match. I'm not going to get too emotionally involved because I don't have the time and the energy or the feeling to do it anymore. I'm fucking getting old. I got to be careful what I fucking stress out about. And I'm not going to stress out about the fucking, the tragedies of the world and national affairs. I don't give a fuck. Whatever. As long as there's conflict and confrontation, you have comedy.
Very true. Well, Joey, I bet we can keep going for hours, but we've got to wrap things up. If people want to follow you on social media, see one of your shows, how can they do so?
They could go to joeydnewyork.com. That's it's all spelled out, joeydnewyork.com. I perform I'm almost every night here in Manhattan. And they could also follow me on all social media at Joey D. New York. So on Twitter, Joey D. New York, Instagram, Joey D. New York, Facebook, Joey D. New York, YouTube, Joey D. New York, all across the board.
Awesome, sir. Thank you so much for calling in tonight. I definitely got to come up to New York and check out one of your shows one of these days. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, let me know when you and the guys want to come up. I'll make sure that you're treated like $1 million in $5 bills.
Much appreciated, sir. So anyway, folks, I usually give you my usual closing, but I'm going to go drown myself in Benadryl. If you could, go ahead and give the show a rating and review on iTunes. You can find us on Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, and as always, the Self-Defense Radio Network, Auto Radio, and Player.fm. And before they kick me out, LRN.fm, because they do listen for all that stuff. Anyway, folks, be good to your neighbor. Go out and treat yourself every once in a while and tune in next time. I'm Remso W. Martinez. Good night.
Stay connected to Liberty's Rabble Rouser on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with the latest episodes, blogs, and other available content. What are you waiting for?
That was then, and now he's shooting up every day. He don't work, he's doing drugs.